What's going on, guys? Welcome back to my Stand review series. I'm going through the 2020 version of the television miniseries The Stand, based on the Stephen King book The Stand, which is currently my favorite horror book of all time, as well as my favorite book period of all time. I'm reviewing each and every episode one at a time, discussing the episode basically in full with spoilers, and then making book comparisons in what is accurate and what is not, and what has been changed, whatever. So, this episode, in my opinion, is the first one that I would definitely have to mention that it's worthwhile knowing the book and knowing the subject matter before watching it. Because there's a couple of things that happen in this episode specifically that you catch if you've read the book immediately. But I'm sitting there watching and I'm thinking, there's a lot that hasn't been explained and that has been skipped over. So, if you know the subject matter, you know exactly what's going on. But if this is your first time watching this story without reading the book or without watching the '90s version, which I haven't even watched the '90s Stand series yet, I intend to though. Then it might go over your head. Now, they probably were doing that to shock you by the end of the episode. Like the reveals do come at the end of the episode. I'm just saying they could have built them better, in my opinion, especially if, like I said, the audience has not read the book. Things kind of just happen without any explanation, and I mean it could work. It just doesn't have the same impact as it because the in the book those situations were built so much and it created more suspense. And I guess the show is going for a little bit more of shock value and like, oh my god, like I wasn't expecting that. Whereas the book, because because of the way the book builds certain things up, it creates more suspense instead of just wow moments. And I think the show is pretty much going for wow moments. Regardless, we start off with we're introduced to this new character that hasn't shown up in any episode yet, and this character is batshit. He's called the Trash Can Man, and I mean like the Joker from Batman is the most sophisticated, sane individual that you've ever met in your entire life, in comparison to the Trash Can Man. I mean, when they brought him on screen, I even after reading the book, I'm like, are they going zombie? Is this some person who survived the plague? But I mean, his face just looked like a zombie movie, and he makes these weird screams all the time, and he's just so out there. Like he can speak, and he does have a lot of dialogue, but like, holy shit, this guy's crazy. And we don't really get a lot of development in his character or backstory in his character. He just shows up. He's bombing a bunch of places. Apparently, he's a pyro. He loves fire and he loves creating bombs. And Lloyd's character, the guy who is the the helper, the main lead after Randall, like Randall's wingman, pretty much played by Nat Wolff. He brings in the Trash Can Man and he introduces him to Randall, and then Randall basically has him become like the creator of weapons for this New Vegas territory that he's creating, and he immediately pretty much gives him an assignment to go acquire this massive nuclear bomb from this military base that's around the Nevada area. And I definitely wish that we got a lot more character development from Trash Can Man, because he really does seem thrown in there and given instructions out of nowhere. Now, I mean, he's so insane that I can only imagine where they're going to take this character as the show goes on, but we just have to see. One thing I forgot to mention in a previous review, Franny knows sign language, but it's never said why or how, and she just knows it. So it's kind of, I don't know if that's just for convenience or, but she is the one character that is able to communicate with Nick Andros. it's awesome. It's just it never like the show never really explained how she knows it, why she knows it. There's nobody in her family that knew it, so it's just she's like that person who can communicate with Nick, and she seems to be the only one. So it's cool, but I wish we got a little bit of a more in like explanation for it kind of thing. I loved the Abigail and Randall Forrest scene. One thing I loved about the book so much is the incarnation of good and evil when it comes to Randall Flagg and Abigail. Oh shoot, what's her last name? I'm blanking on her last name. Whoops. Abigail, Mother Abigail. And I love the good and evil aspect of them. That whole conversation in the forest where she plans on spending 40 days and 40 nights there if that's what it takes. And he's kind of trying to get into her head where, like, he keeps insisting that all she wants to do is die. And she hopes that every night she goes to bed she won't wake up. And she's not having any of it because she is literally the incarnation of love, of good. And I love their banters. And I love, even though they never met up in the book, the fact that they make them meet up and actually communicate with each other like physically in the show is a really really good addition, so I like that. The killing of Judge Farris was interesting because again they bring out this other guy named Junior who doesn't last very long, but apparently he was sent out to kill Judge Farris, which again is it's another thing. This is another aspect that they rush so much in this show in comparison to the book. Buddy comes in with Judge Ferris's body, shows Randall the body. The body is too mutilated, and Randall specifically said that he wants the body, intact, not shot up. He wants a full, what do you call it? A body that you're able to identify, kind of thing. And he brings him this like mutilated, shot up body, and then he basically there's an interrogation and Junior leaves and like hops in the elevator. It's a really cool scene the way they did it, but they just change it around so much and they just rush it so much. And you can't blame these shows for rushing things because even in a series that's 9 hours, you still can't cover a book this big in 9 hours. I know it's unfortunate. Like, I mean, you could make 8 seasons easily on a book this size, but I mean, it's my favorite book for a reason. It's just absolutely amazing. Anybody who hasn't read it, I strongly recommend doing so, especially if you like the shows. But again, there's differences and there's similarities. But and then he gets murdered in the elevator, which is amazing. It's gore filled, and I absolutely love it. I also love the addition of Fiona Dorff's character. She plays the rat girl or something like that. She hasn't been developed much, but I love Fiona Dorff. And even though that's not a character that I remember at all from the book, I don't even think there was a rat girl in the book whatsoever. She's a good addition to the show, so I really really like that. And the elevator kill with that Junior guy was awesome. I loved the scene that they had with Harold and Stu in the forest. Harold actually points a gun at him while he's like turned around, so he doesn't even notice. And he's holding a gun to Stu's head as Stu is facing the same direction, not knowing that Harold is behind him, aiming at him. And they're having a conversation, and Harold like doesn't pull the trigger. As soon as he turns around, he hides the gun behind his back again. And they really played that off, very similar to the subject matter, like the source material. I mean. And I liked how they pulled that off in the rain and everything. It was a really, really cool scene. And then we have like the big climactic moment of the show. We're dealing with a bomb situation. Once again, the only other time that it was suggested that Harold wanted to build bombs was like 2 or 3 episodes ago where he was reading that pamphlet about the Avalanche Mountains. Other than that, there's a scene closer to the beginning of the episode where Nadine comes to bring a bunch of cards, and then she places this tube beside the piano, and the camera really focuses on the tube, so it's supposed to suggest that it's something dangerous or important. Again, in the book, you know what's going on. It builds it up to them planning a bomb attack quite early, and it really builds it for some time. And in this one, if you don't know that, like, if you don't like she kind of just shows up and like places something by the piano, so it's easy for the audience to miss it, kind of thing. But Franny shows up at Harold's house and breaks into his basement, and she discovers the monitors, including one specifically that's watching her entire bedroom, so has been for the last few weeks, which is really, really freaking creepy. And then she discovers his bomb station with like a bunch of like items and pieces of things that are designed to build bombs. And she discovers a diary that he's writing as well, which contains like some sinister poems and poetry and really dark stuff. And then lo and behold, who shows up? Harold. And it's a really, really good scene. One thing I liked about that scene a lot is Franny was terrified, rightly so, and Harold like kind of he goes psycho mode. He's like, this wasn't supposed to be like this, and you can see the fear in Franny's eyes. And he's like, oh, I mean, I had this like I was supposed to own the plague or whatever he says, but Franny starts to get very sympathetical with him and kind of calm him down or try to the best way she can. And you're thinking this is going to go to a direction where she's trying to trick him because she wants to get away and stuff like that. But there's a moment where she gives him a hug, and you can tell that she really means it. Like she tells him straight up that this is a time more than ever that we need to work together as a team and we need to work as a community. Not we must survive together. We can't survive on our own. It's about community, and it's about trust, and it's about love. And she tells him straight up, you're the one who taught me that, and the world never turned your back on you, Harold. Even though Harold, for the whole show and the whole book especially, because all the characters are built better in the book, that he taught her that. And she makes it clear to him that it was him. It was like, if it wasn't for him, she wouldn't have even learned that lesson, potentially. And you like, she gives him a hug and she really means it, and then he turns it around and pulls off another snake move and leaves her in the basement and shuts the door. So he's still the psycho that he is. And he's a very sad character. He's a very tragic character, but the actor who plays him beautifully. I really like, even though certain aspects of him are changed compared to what I had in my head about Harold in the book. The actor who plays Harold and the version of this Harold is actually really, really good. And then I love the climax of the show. It revolves around that bomb that was put in the Vigil. The Vigil is like the community center. It's what they decide to call this place where everybody gathers monthly or however long. And the episode is also called The Vigil. And then we have Nadine and Harold meeting up outside of the town of Boulder, the city of Boulder. I think it's pretty big. And then they push the button, and we have the death of Nick Andros, who I really, 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 really wish was developed a lot more in this episode, because he was one of the biggest built characters in depth and identity in the book, that they really rushed through him in this show. And I think that's a little bit of a detriment, because he's one of the best characters. He is a main character, and they really don't treat him as a main character in this series. Which I found unfortunate, because I really liked Nick in the book, and how strongly and how great he, like how much they built him as like a heartfelt character. Like, he really impacted everybody else in the story. That I really didn't think he was given enough screen time and things to do in this miniseries. So it is what it is, though. He has his death. It wasn't really warranted, or like there wasn't much of an impact, in my opinion, in the show. His death was a lot more impactful. Same death, like he died in the same way. He died in the bomb going off. But in the book, because they built him up so much, it really hit me in the heart. And in this one, if I had never read the book, I wouldn't have even cared. I'd be like, oh, this guy who showed up like in 2 episodes dies. So I really don't like how they kind of pushed him to the side in the show. But like I said, it is what it is. It's that's the downside of adapting books to shows or movies is that you only have a limited amount of time to do it unless you make a ridiculously long show. But that's episode 6, so there's 3 more to go, and like I said, if you're going to compare to the book, it's no it's no it doesn't hold a candle to the book. I mean, the epicness of the book. Usually I do these videos too where I talk about the episode and then I talk about book comparisons. In this one, honestly, I feel like I kind of combined the two, so I'm just going to leave it at that. I already mentioned most of the book comparisons. I'm looking at my notes and I can't find many that I haven't mentioned already. The forest scene with Abigail and Randall, they never meet in the book. They only meet through visions. So they never actually physically meet. That's why I said in the show how they physically met and started to communicate. I found that really cool. But that doesn't happen in the book. And like I said, the main thing about this episode is there's a lot of things that happen quick, and you're gonna miss unless you already know the backstory, unless you've already read the book and know what's coming. I think there's a lot of things in this episode that are really gonna go over people's heads. The elevator scene where that junior guy, who wasn't even mentioned in the book from my recollection, was awesome. I loved that death. That's probably the best kill so far in this whole series. Really loved that kill. I love how Randall is approaching the elevator, the door's closed, and then Junior thinks he's safe, but then he looks at the floor and Randall's right there like, boo. And because he's the reincarnation of evil itself, aka the devil, it makes sense. And then he just starts whipping him all over the elevator, and there's gore everywhere. When they want to do carnage on this show, they do carnage, and I really, really like that. So I'm going to leave that at that. That's episode 6. Go watch The Stand. I do recommend this one. I will get to the 90s version, and I most likely will review it as well. But the biggest recommendation I can make straight up is the book. If you have time to go through the entire thing, it's about 1,300 pages, but it's well worth your time, I promise. In my opinion. I don't promise. You might hate it, but it's my recommendation. Subscribe to Morgan Film Fan if you like to listen to my voice, or if you like my film reviews. I'll be back with more when I can. Check out my other content. Subscribe if you're interested and you like what you see. And I'll be back next time. So take care and cheers.